So this video is about how to drain, change, and gauge ATF in some Peugeot automatic gearboxes in Peugeot vehicles. Some, not all. Um, so I'm going to be more specific on the gearboxes. You can do this. Remember, it's automatic. So the gearboxes are AL4, AT8, ZF4 HP20, AM6, and AT6. So these 5 gearboxes, I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. Remember, AL4, AT8, ZF4 HP20, AM6, and the AT6. So these are the 5 gearboxes. This procedure works on all of them. So you apply what I'm going to explain in this video. So first, I always advise, if you want to change the gear oil on these gearboxes, you have to do like minimum of 3 oil changes. At least minimum 3. That's I usually say, okay, on average 4, but minimum 3 if you really want to get it right. Some people might not understand what I'm saying. See, automatic gearboxes have 2 chambers. Let me just use that word, 2 chambers, just to make it easier to understand. It has 2 chambers. One is the torque converter, the other is the gearbox itself. So as the gearbox is running, oil converter has some oil stored. You could say half of the oil, the entire oil on the 2 components, half will be on the converter, the other half will be. I'm not saying it's exactly what it is, but I'm saying just consider it half here, half the other. So when you drain, when you want to do the normal service, when you say just I want to change your engine oil, the only one oil that will come out will be the part, the quantity that is in the gearbox, not the one on the converter. The one on the converter will remain there pending when you start the engine. So when you start the engine, then the oil pump in the automatic gearbox will now start to circulate, just like your engine coolant behaves. Water pump, as it's moving, is circulating the coolant in your engine to the radiator, back to the engine, all that. So same way, the oil pump in the automatic gearbox will just be moving the fluid, circulating this one from the gearbox back to the converter from the converter to the gearbox by to and flow. So that's what it does, the oil pump. So half of the other one that stays in the converter will be there when you drain oil from your gearbox, the normal way of servicing or changing oil on the gearbox. So meaning when you do that, only half will come out. So if your gearbox, the entire system, the gearbox, the converter has it takes about 6 liters normal to fill up the system. Take 6 liters, it means about 3 liters will come out, the other 3 will stay there. So the reason why I recommend that at least 3 changes is, while the 3 comes out, you pour fresh oil 3 in. It means immediately you start your engine, the other 3 in the old oil in the converter will go and mix up with the new one. Of course, you know that it doesn't make sense that if you want to change your engine oil and the manual says the quantity is about 5 liters, you drain 2.5 liters and stop, and leave the old oil that is already worn out, the 2.5 left in you just leave it there. Now you now go and pour fresh 2.5 liters inside your engine. and pat yourself on the back that, yeah, you've done your work, you've changed your oil. So the next one will be next 6 months, next 10,000, 8,000, 6,000 kilometers. And you'll be comfortable that the 2.5 liters you poured in fresh oil, that the old oil will not contaminate and, degrade it faster. Remember, it's already worn out. So when you pour the other one, it means it will. Understand that when you are changing engine oil, even if you drain out everything, something will remain. Probably on some minimum, at the maximum, sometimes like half a liter. If I won't get to that, but let's just say half a liter is there, 0.5 liter. When you pour a fresh oil, at least that's remaining small quantity. It won't really have much effect, considering that the fresh one you poured in, let's say 4.5 liters, is about 90 to 95%. So that little one will really actually contaminate or have much effect on it. But imagine when almost 2.5 and 2.0, the new 2.5, new 2.5. Of course, the one that is bad already will have more effect on the new one. So it's just like mixing oil with water. If there is smaller water, small quantity of water, it won't really have much. I'm not saying it won't have effect, but because the oil is about, let's say, 95%, and you have 5% of water in the water mixed with oil will still overshadow it. It will take a while before the smaller percentage of water will now deteriorate, affect the oil adversely. But when it's maybe 10 liters of oil, 10 liters of water are common, it's going to mess up your oil. It's as simple as that. So back to this, the gearbox oil change. So that's why you need to drain, fill up, drain, fill up, drain. Because the more you do it, remember, you do it, start the vehicle to mix up with the old and new. You drain again. So like half of the one on the old oil that was stuck in the converter will now go out with the second drain you will do, because it's already mixed up. So they will go and flow and stay in the gearbox when you do the drain. So be prepared. So those 3 changes means if your gearbox takes 3 liters for normal service, because remember, even if a gearbox takes maximum of 6 liters for the entire system, it's only half will come out, or at least about half. So I mean, the only thing you could remove and put in will be 3 liters. Let's assume that's the way they design. So half out, so 3 liters. So it means you have to now do the calculation. If you are doing that 3 oil changes, how many if your gearbox takes 4 liters, it means you are looking at 12 liters for the 3 changes. If your gearbox takes about 3.5 liters or 4 liters per service, or let's say 3 liters, I know some will take 3 liters, then you are looking at 9 liters for the 3 change. That's the minimum. Then if it's 4 change you want to do, 4 changes, of course, you keep increasing. So I want to get this out of the way before we now go into the really technical aspect of this video. So for these 5 automatic gearboxes that I listed in the beginning of this video, before you change the oil, don't do it when it's cold. Don't change the AT8 when it's cold. The gearbox needs to be hot. Warm, you could call it. Me, I consider it hot, 60 degrees Celsius. Yeah, okay, it's not necessarily that hot, but it's hot. So, but okay, call it warm. That's what Peugeot says. The oil has to be warm. I'm talking about gearbox oil now, the ATF. And how do you know the temperature of the oil, you need a diagnostic tool, you need a scan tool, and most times it has to be a professional scan tool, not all the generic scan tool, because to assess the temperature of ATF in the gearbox, you have to enter inside the engine ECU, use a parameter measurement feature or live what's it called, um live stream, or all the generic scan tools, they have their own name. So you have to check the live reading of the inputs inside the gearbox. There you find the oil temperature, the ATF temperature. So for the sake of this video, since this is like PSA Peugeot vehicle, so we are focusing on PP2000. So you need PP2000 for this. Any technician that does not have PP2000 won't be able to do this oil change well for you, or does not have at least, or have access, or can be able to find someone that can bring a professional scan tool that will give you access to the oil ATF temperature. You are not going to get it right. You may end up damaging the gearbox, or not get, doing the, I don't know, whatever it is. I'm saying if you want to get it right without any effect on your gearbox, you need a diagnostic tool like PP2000. So the oil temperature needs to be at least 60 degrees Celsius. What I do in my case, for all the people I've done, is I don't necessarily have to, let's assume I drive in the vehicle to where I want to change the oil. I just plug in my my PP2000, and watch to see the oil temperature, leave it there. Sometimes it could be as high as 90 degrees Celsius or so. I'll wait. Once the temperature drops as low as 70, 69, I do the change. I don't have to wait for it to get to that 60 mark. No. What I usually do, once it gets to 70, anything below 70, between 60 to 70, I'll just wait for it to drop less than 70. So anything between 60 to 69 degrees Celsius, I'll do the change. Because there's not much difference between the two, between 70 and 60. So at that time, it's now safe for you to drain the ATF. Now, another thing you should need to know, because this can be very dangerous, or very, very risky. Of course, the first logical thing one's supposed to do is, or the first thing one is expected to do, is to go and drain the old one. Remove the drain plug and drain. However, it can be dangerous because you might try to remove it and it won't come out, or something might happen. No, what I mean is the plug on top of the gearbox, the oil filler where you pour in the ATF, sometimes they don't lose easily. Sometimes they could stay stuck. You may even be in a situation where, in fact, the best way of handling it is to drop the gearbox, remove the gearbox from the vehicle, and do it on the ground. If it refuses to lose, it could be that where the spanner is supposed to enter have worn out. You try to chisel it out, and it may look so risky that it may damage the gearbox trying to do that. And if you have already gone under and losing out the oil, it means that car can no longer move. But if you first remove the oil filler plug, and okay, it has removed, even if you want to tighten it by, just use your hand. You don't need to tighten it so much. Use your hand. Personally, I'll just remove it, leave it open, or tighten it a little. Just use your hand. You don't need to use spanner. Screw it in a little. Then you now go under, meaning that it's now safe, so that even if the when you drain, or if let's assume the oil filler plug, the one where you pour in the oil from the top of the gearbox, refuses to open, or to be removed. You could decide, okay, I'm not ready to do this now, or to drop the engine, or damage it, trying to force it, which may damage or crack the gearbox in the process. Let's leave the old oil for now. You can drive out the vehicle, let the person use the car until when he's ready. Maybe it may require dropping the gearbox. So that's what I'm saying. People don't really actually understand. It's very, very risky. It's not like engine oil, that the the oil filler cover is just you just use your hand and turn and remove. So you don't need any special tool to. But the gearbox on usually locked with metal bolts or screw or whatever. So sometimes in the process of trying to remove it, depending on who have done the work before, or someone use a bad tool and in the process damage it, and it will come out. It stay there. So if you have drained the oil before you attempt to go and remove the filler plug, you are you are in a mess. You can't drive the automatic gearbox without ATF. That's the big disaster right there. It's not like manual one that you can drive manual gearbox without any oil. Driving for some few kilometers before you even start hearing puku puku puku, because that's how they do. Once their oil finishes, you after a while you hear puku 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 puku. The funny thing with manual is if you don't do it, if you don't drive it for too long, if you pour oil, the noise goes away, and that's it. So automatic driving without oil is fucked. You may not even reach 1 kilometer. That's the end. So okay, so that is it. Remove the drain plug or loosen it a little before you now go. No, not the drain plug, the oil filler plug, before you now go under to drain. Okay, so remember, the oil temperature has to show you. The ATF temperature has to be at least minimum of 60 degrees Celsius, or at least 60 degrees Celsius before you drain. It has to be warm or hot. So you drain, what will come out will be most likely 3 liters if all things equal, because you don't know if the person that did the oil change before overfilled the gearbox. So you might be expecting 3 liters, and what will come out will be 6 liters. Yes, I've had mechanics argue that gearboxes like AM6 takes about 6 liters for normal services. Yet, as far as Peugeot is concerned, it takes only 3 liters, but they argue that's what they've been using, 6 liters. Imagine what he has been doing to these gearboxes, So what will come out in this case may not really matter, because it's possible it was overfilled before. It's possible that the gearbox was leaking fluid before, and so the quantity has dropped. So what will come out may not be up to 3 liters. So don't use quantity of what comes out to determine what goes in. Don't do that. So drain. Then now when there are 2 ways of draining. Not like 2 ways. There are 2 things that you have to do when you come to draining. So when you come to, you can see these two drain plugs. One is actually both are drain plugs, if the wise. However, one has more of oil level plug. Now the one that has number 1 mark is the oil level plug. It's also serving as oil drain plug. The one of number 2, that one has to come out first. It goes into the number. You can see that hole where the arrow of number 1 is pointing. So this number 2 smaller plug goes into more like a screw. So it goes into that hole. So that's the first one you first drain, access. Remove it. It will pour, some oil will drop out, but not everything. For everything in the gearbox to now go off, you have to remove this number 1 plug, which is more like the oil level plug. So you put 17 spanner there. 17. Sometimes you have to If you don't have there's a special tool for it, then you may have to use what I normally do is it 17 or 16? Trying to remember. You get a good 16 or 17, but I think it's 17. Maybe when I confirm, I'll put it on the video description. You go and get one that the head is still intact. Get a welder to weld it, the bolt, the part of the bolt that's that screw, not the where the thread is, not where you put your spanner. You weld it, put it so maybe on a rod or something that can allow you to use it as a spanner. So you put that 17 inside that hole. You can see look at it. So you can see this shape. So it's the same size of 17. Like I say, I'll still mixing it up, but whichever one, 17, 16. But I know for all these AL4, 4HP20, AM6, AT6, AT8, they're basically the same, for this. Unless maybe yours is different, but this is just like standard. So you put it there, lose it, then the entire 3 or 4 liters in your gearbox will go out. The one in converter will still stay there. So they won't go out until you lose this number 1 drain plug. So you could say like 50 may not even be up to 50%. Like 5% of the 3 liters inside the gearbox will come out when you remove this plug 2. Then the remaining 100% of what is inside the gearbox will come out when you remove the plug 1. So that's how it is. So I'll still come back to this because they will also serve a purpose when it comes to gauging the oil. So okay, so I want to move to the other. Okay, so as I'm saying this, you can actually read what is on the screen. This is the manual, so you can read it. And though in terms of the drain plug, the oil level plug, the numbering is reversed on the other picture I showed you. So don't use this what is shown here. So so you drain, then you first pour in the first 3 liters, couple it back, put back the oil level plug, the oil drain plug, cover the top. When it comes to that upper oil filler plug, I don't tighten. I sometimes I just use a hand screw, tighten it without even locking it. Remember, you're expected to change the oil again, most likely that same day or 10 minutes later or 20 minutes after this phase change. So why tighten it? Risk not being able to remove it again to do the second change. So I just use a hand. So what I do is, Peugeot says you might not even need to drive the car. All you need to start the car. After doing those things, let it warm up. You can read it how they stated it here. Okay, we've not gotten to that. I think this is where this is the next stage. So after doing that, let's just say you can shift for the gear lever while the engine is running from P to D, shift it back to P, this and that, allow the engine to warm up. For me, what I do is I drive the car. Maybe 5 kilometers. Of course, with the engine idle, with the car not in motion, yeah, the oil pump is in action. So it's circulating the oil, moving the one on the converter to the gearbox onto the converter, mixing the old and the new oil. However, for me, I just prefer, while oil pump is doing that, let the gear moves. Remember when the final, the differential start to rotate, those final drive, start moving all the gears. So it will make it faster too. It will shift, whatever all the oils there, move out, mix with this one. So you don't necessarily have to drive it for a long distance or for a high kilometer for you to do another change. So for me, like I just do like minimum of 5 liters or thereabout, 5 kilometers. So come back. At least that will also help to warm up the oil much faster than leaving it idling, which may take a little bit. Remember, once the gear start rotating, it creates energy, which will increase the temperature. So that is enough. Maybe drive, come back. Sometime may come back, it will be that the oil temperature maybe has even exceeded 60 degrees Celsius or is about to get there. Your scan tool has to be plugged in. You are a monitor all this. You need to know the oil temperature for you to do the second one, oil change. So you repeat the same process. Remove the oil filler plug, or since you didn't tighten it again this time around, so you can drain or remove whichever one. Now when it comes to quantity, this where for example, I know AM6, AT6, they are 3 liters for normal service. 3 liters. People always assume that because it's very big. It's big. So how do you expect 3 liters just to be enough for such a big component like this? Same way people assume, how can you expect 4 liters for 4.7 liters to be enough for such a 3.0 liter engine? When it's the same quantity you also use, or almost same quantity you use in smaller 2.0 engines. It doesn't matter. The people that design or produce this know why they say no, use this. Irrespective of the size, use this quantity. So AM6, AT6, 3 liters per a service. 4HP20, I think it's also 3 liters, or 3.5 or 4 liters. It's within that range, between 3 to 4. I'm not so sure. Again, I used to know that. Then AL4, AT8, I think in that case, it depends, because some vehicle specification you could see 3.5. I think the AL4, they are different sizes depending on the engine is attached to. So some you see they say 3.5, some 3 liters. So it varies depending on the engine is attached to, something like that. So I can't be specific on the quantity that I can use for the AL4. So, but one thing I do know, for these 5 gearboxes, AL4, AT8, AM6, 4HP20, AT6, for these 5 gearboxes, you can't go wrong if you use 4 liters. If you assume, okay, no matter what, 4 liters for this service. Don't get me, I know you might say, but you say AM6 is 3 liters, and you're saying 4. No, I said, don't worry about that. But you can't go wrong. For me, this AM6, AT6, I don't even bother. I know it's 3 liters, so I just pour in 3 liters. But these other two, like right now, I don't know. But it's something I can find out before I do it for anybody. But right now, like I said, none of them exceed 4 liters. Well, to the best of my understanding. At least AL4, I'm not sure they exceeded. So you can't get wrong with using 4 liters for the service. I'm not talking about gauging now, but you come to that. So no matter what, you can't go wrong with that. So you can use 4 liters. Yeah, you'll be over gauge, but remember, this is not like what is going to stay in the gearbox. You want to flush the old out as much as possible. So you do it, drive another 5 kilometers or so. So what you are doing is, the more you put the fresh one and drain, wait for it, temperature to come up, drain, this and that. The more you do it, the more the old oil is going out. Yeah, it's mixing with the new oil, but the quantity is reducing. So By the time you get to the 3 change or 4 change, you have at least nothing less than about 80 or 70% or more than 80% self, depending, of new oil inside the system. So in that case, you secured the gearbox rather than doing just one change. Like I said, doing mixing old oil that is already bad, 2.5 liters, with new oil that is 2.5 liters. The old it will even affect the new more self, So it won't really it might feel small improvement. Let us assume the gearbox is giving some symptom. Maybe you do that first change, might feel small improvement, but the oil working much faster. That new one you put, So that's the thing. Now, when it now comes to the gauging, so after you've done those 3, you now say, okay, now you now have to confirm or leave it at the normal level, irrespective of whatever you poured in. Whatever you pour in should be more, at least, or it shouldn't be less than recommended quantity, so it doesn't damage the gearbox in the process of waiting for the oil temperature to warm up. Remember, the engine has to be running, so it has to be enough to keep the gearbox, everything being lubricated while the engine is running and while the ATF temperature is coming up until it gets to 60. So when you now do the 3rd or the 4th one and you want to gauge it, you now start the vehicle after you've done the 4th change or 3rd change, or confirm if the temperature is already but I don't think, because once you drain and put fresh oil, it will drop the oil temperature immediately. So you still have to start, plug this can to leave it wash as the temperature is coming up. Once the ATF temperature gets to that 60, 62, whatever, what you now do is you just leave it on pack. Remember, engine is running, leave the gear lever on pack, with, of course, with your hand brake on. Now you go under the car. Engine has to be running. You go under the car. What you now do is, remember, these 2 plugs are already in while this you are waiting for temperature to warm up. So once it gets to 60, you now remove this drain plug, number 2 drain plug, 60 degrees Celsius ATF. Remove this number 2 drain plug. Yeah, you need to get a container that normally the one you use in doing the draining. You need it there. Immediately you remove it, oil will start pouring out with the engine running. Some people that's why when I tell people or try to educate some mechanics on it, they get scared because they assume, wow, engine oil dropping with the gearbox, engine running and gearbox oil is dropping, that it will damage the gear, blah, blah, blah. So it will start dropping. And the reason why I said, for example, you can't get wrong with 4 liters. Let's assume the recommended quantity for the AM6 is 3 liters. It's actually 3 liters. It's not about assumption, but that is what it is. So when you now come to that 4th change, or the last time you want to now do, the last one you will do, if it's the 3rd or 4th oil change, pour more than 3 liters. You could pour 3.5. For me, sometimes I just empty additional 1 liter, making it 4 liters. Even though I know it's 3 liters, I just empty it. I'm doing that for the gauging, not for the extra 1 liter to stay in the gearbox. So you could pour that maybe half a liter there if you don't want to waste the other one. For me, I just don't care. I just pour the empty. Once you open it, the other half a liter probably may not even use it anymore for another, I don't know. So just empty it there. What you need is get it right. It's not like you're going to buy, if you see where you can buy half a liter, so you are buying minimum of 1 liter for this kind of work. So empty it, and then the reason why you need to put excess oil when you now come to the final one is you need to be sure that the oil is gauged. Because let's assume that what was in the converter at the point when you do the first oil change is less than what it should be. Let's assume the gearbox was leaking oil before, so instead of 6 liters to be in the entire gearbox, what we now have was like 4 liters. So it means that all those 3 liters you've been putting while you are doing the change is still not enough. So but now when you put additional 1 liter, if it's enough, the gearbox has all this while it has enough liter, that 1 liter will come out. That 1 liter you put in, excess 1 liter will still drain out from here. With the engine running, remember now you're doing the gauge, the engine is running, you remove this number 2 drain plug, now 1 liter will come out. But if the gearbox was not up to that 6 liters all those while before you did the draining, and when you are doing all those draining, you might realize that nothing might come out, meaning that it actually still needs some liters. So in that case, you have to switch off the car, add more this thing, and go back to the draining exercise, the gauging exercise now. Where I mean checking the level of the oil in the gearbox. So you need to add excess oil for that final one. So you keep doing it until oil start coming out. If oil doesn't come out, it's most likely it's not gauged. How? See, you see this drain plug here. You may not really understand it now, so let me not even go. But just understand what because to do this, I'll need a different picture to help you understand why if oil doesn't come out when you remove this thing, it means it's most likely not gauged. Because if it doesn't get to that particular the other end of this oil level gauge, then it's likely it's not gauged. But it's more technical. It's not so the technical one will understand what I mean, because you already understand the design inside the gearbox. But to do that to some people who don't know, I'll need a sketch to be able to explain that. So maybe in future I'll just use a sketch, draw something, then show it, whatever. So that's what you need to do. If you don't get, so you have to make until oil start dropping out. Once it start dropping out, allow it to drop. Keep dropping. Allow it. Don't freak out. You'll be so, even if 2 liters what comes out is up to 2 liters, leave it there. As long as you didn't remove the number 1, this oil drain or oil level plug, don't remove it, leave it there. The only one you remove is this number 2. The reason why I use this particular picture because it's number, so that as I'm saying this thing, you won't say, oh, I mistakenly said. No, number 2 is the one that you will remove when it comes to checking the oil level, confirming the oil level is intact. So once you remove it, let the engine keep running. Whatever that is coming out, leave it, let it keep coming out. Even if 4 liters come out, leave it. It means what you have there has been excess. Maybe what they put there has been 10 liters or so. Okay, for example, the Peugeot technicians or mechanics that use 6 liters for V6, which is in other words AM6, because the AM6 is very big, the gearbox is big, so especially the ones attached on those ES9A V6 engines, so it's very big. So they assume that because of the size, it needs so much quantity. So remember, the torque converter will have about 3 liters stock there. So they will now put 6 liters or so inside the gearbox as the normal service. So instead of the whole entire gearbox to have 6 liters, so you now have how many liters now? About 9. So which of course will reduce the lifespan of the gearbox. It will kill the gearbox over time. Not necessarily too long. It will damage it. So yeah, you may end up doing that thing, and what will come out will be more than 2 liters, 3 liters. It means all this while they have been excess. So leave it, just leave it, let it keep coming out until it stops. it won't necessarily stop completely. What you now realize is once it gets to the normal level, if it's 6 liters that both the one in the converter and the gearbox is supposed to have, you now get a point, you now start seeing the oil will just reduce, the oil drop will reduce. You now start seeing pump, pump, pump. Once you get to that, then you are done. Then you put back the oil drain plug, the number 2 plug, you tighten it back. You have concluded the oil level gauge. So it means what you have in that gearbox now is what is recommended. Even if you don't know the recommended quantity for the entire gearbox and the converter, it doesn't matter anymore. So what you have there now is what is recommended quantity by Peugeot. That's what should be there. If you don't do this oil gauge, you are going to, while you are changing your ATF, you are most likely damaging that gearbox. That's why people always have gearbox issues, because whenever they change the oil, they either underfill it or overfill it, or they don't do they assume, I've changed the oil by doing only one oil change, and expect to drive the car for another 50,000 kilometers or so without changing the oil, because they assume that the new oil, the 3 liters or 4 liters they put in is enough to keep the gearbox intact, not knowing that the old one there has already deteriorated, messed up the new one, because you didn't remove the other quantity, so it stays there and mess up the new one. So these are the reasons why people always have issue with automatic gearboxes. These 5 gearboxes I mentioned, so that's the more like the standard way of changing and draining them. So you can read up, can follow the manufacturers, like you can see here how you can do the gauging and all that. It's here, it's written on the screen. This is the manufacturer recommendation, so you can follow that. It's the same, I use the same, only that when it comes to the drain, like I want to do 6 changes, no, 3 changes, I just prefer to just drive the car, even if it's matter how small kilometers, just move it around. Sometimes I won't even go far, just go turn back, drain again, let it just move. The gear has to move, push the oil, push it out, circulate while the oil pump is doing its work. However, I may not need to do that. I may just do it as manufacturer recommended, since they also understand. But the reason why I do it, because most times manufacturers will do it like, okay, if you are following the recommendation, your oil is not even supposed to get that bad before you change it. But you realize that sometimes when you want to change ATF in gearbox, the oil will be so black, meaning that it exceeded the recommended change interval. Of course, the Peugeot, they messed up in their recommended interval in some of these ATF. Some says for life, all those crap. But what I'm point is the oil has exceeded the recommended interval when you're supposed to go. So if it's that dark black, I'm not talking of engine, I'm talking about gearbox now. Engine and gearbox, they are 2 different things. So if the gearbox oil is so black, it means it has really burnt, or not necessarily burnt, as in it has 1 or 2. You're not supposed to get that black before you change it. So it will take a while. Sometimes even 3 change may not be enough until the oil color will change to the normal ATF new oil. It may take more than 4 liters sometimes, if it's really that dark, before the normal color will come back. You have to keep draining, changing, run it until you see the normal color will start to come out from the drain plug. Okay, so yeah, I know this video is long, but I had to do it because people need to know this is how you can safely use these Peugeot cars with these gearboxes without you damaging the gearbox. If your technician doesn't, he might tell you, I know how to gauge it. Are you sure? Does he have a PP2000 professional scan tool, or whatever scan, even if maybe your own generic scan tool can assess the ATF temperature? And what I mean the gearbox oil temperature, not engine oil temperature. If your generic scanner can assess the temperature, fine, go ahead and use it. My point is, you need to know the temperature before you drain. You know. So all these things, can your technician be able to follow this procedure in terms of the oil level, gauging the oil to be sure it's lower, that is not excess or too low. If you can't look for someone who can do it. Or if you think you can do it yourself, go ahead. But like I said, this is how you can normally do. You are supposed to do the oil change, automatic gearbox oil change. So it's technical. It's not simple. I'm not saying it's not simple, but I'm saying it's more technical than changing the engine oil. So you have to be more careful when it comes to this automatic. Any small thing, the gearbox is gone. Engine can work. See, engine can work without oil. Oh. That's what people don't understand. You can drain engine oil completely, start the engine without any oil. There won't be any friction. It will take a while before because there will still be some oil films, on the crankshaft and all the journals, everything that will still be running, even on the camshaft. So it take a while before the friction, sound will now start showing that, okay, this is now oil has been starved and the engine is now running metal to metal. But the gearbox, it will fuck. If you just, that will be the end. So engine can tolerate oil abuse more than automatic gearbox. So if you are not so sure, you can do the less professional or an expert or someone that understands it, do it better for you. However, insist that the recommended way of doing it is followed. Okay, that's all.